Thank you.
Great,
So,
great. Those are a lot of accolades there, sir.
We all have them, it's
Yeah.
I grew up with a mom who believed in the value of education, but I'm surrounded, most people I know believe in that. So, I'm not special in that regard by any means.
Very nice.
yeah, but
very nice.
you do it in the way that you do it in is what I appreciate, because you really do. When you said that your business is integral with the community, I really see you doing that. I mean, you go out there and you do things for your community as far as uplifting, educating, and taking to another level. So for that, I want to thank you. I want to congratulate you, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you as a Solano County resident. I appreciate the things that you're doing for us. All right, thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm just glad to, I think we all have gifts. And, I grew up in a military family. I wasn't in the military. My father didn't want me to do that. He didn't feel like it was a good place for me to go, based on, the old, it's kind of like what's happening right now with the police shootings. Military used to be a very hierarchical, racist organization in certain regards. And so I grew up in a service family. They pushed me to Boy Scouts and all that kind of stuff. So I just thought that, we all have gifts, and unfortunately people don't have an opportunity to develop their gifts and use them for the best of the community. So I'm just fortunate to have been raised that way, to always just give back. So it's just part of who I am.
Speaking to your background, with you being such in a regimented structure, your family being in the military, were you pushed more to get out and start looking for a job after college, or were you pushed towards becoming an entrepreneur?
That's a good question. I would say, my mother really wanted, she's old school, thought, get a good job, have a career, have that security, that stability. I tried that, I didn't go straight to college. I went to the workforce first, right out of high school, worked for a few years and went back to college like at 21, 22. And it just wasn't for me. I was watching all these people. Well, I had this one uncle. I see my cousin Alfonso, I'm not gonna call his family name out. We have this uncle who was a really well-off, very wealthy real estate man. And it's like you go to work and you have all these people slaving on the clock. There's nothing wrong with that. We have gifts. Then you have people have this, unlimited resources. And I started reading all the books. I was like, I want to have control of my time, control of my destiny, and be able to generate wealth, but also be able to generate time so that I can invest it how I want to invest it. Because I was in the corporate world, like really heavy. And I was fortunate to get hooked up with some good mentors early on. And they taught me kind of how to move up the corporate ladder. So I was in a Fortune 100 company. And by the time I hit 27, I was 2 steps out of vice president. And it started getting real grueling, 12, 14, 15-hour days. I go to work any given day. This is in Northern California, and I got to get on a plane and go to Boston the next day because that's what they say. And I didn't want that life. And I started watching just how people are controlled by corporate America. And then I watched my uncle, and he, at the time being young in my 20s, I was a little materialistic. So I wanted more of what he had than more of what I saw at work. So I went out and started becoming an entrepreneur. But I've always been enterprising though. I was that kid when, you hear about having newspaper routes and all that. I wasn't good at that. That was too much work. I think my first day, I remember, I thought a newspaper route was glamorous when I was like kid. They dropped off the papers. I didn't know they just dropped off the papers and then the rubber bands were separate. And then the plastic bags, you had to assemble that. I threw all those papers in the gutter. I kid you not.
Nobody got that paper that day.
Nobody got that paper that day and never went back. I didn't know. I thought you just drop it off on the porch and it was good to go. But the point is, we would go help the ladies with the groceries, go to the grocery store and hustle up money, go cut lawns. I was always that kid. And so being an entrepreneur was just part of who I want. It was just already in me. So that's kind of how I ended up in that path.
So let me follow up with that then. How did you get the concept for your current business and to then expand to 10 different businesses? And what was your mission at the outset of starting these businesses and going from a corporate level, like you said, 2 levels from the vice president to now doing your own thing?
Yeah, there's a couple layers to that. I can first say the thing that drives people crazy at my office now with my team is I'm still always thinking of new stuff to do. I'm one of those folks that if I see a need, I got to solve a problem. I'm a systems thinker that way. So I'm not going to just kind of go with the flow if there is something better that could be done more efficiently. Because that's how my mind works. So even now I have to fight against prioritizing my time and energy and resources to not get too spread out. So that's always there, and I still think that way. So how my career has spanned, a lot of the enterprises that I started with, I still am involved in it in one facet or another. So, you know, I have a number of enterprises where I have partners because I'm just inspired by creativity. I'm a creator. I'm not a scaler. So that's not who I am. I'm the person who I'll see a need, and then I'll solve that problem and then get it to the point where it's sustainable. And then it needs to go to somebody in operations to run it and grow it. Cause that's just not I'm not a detail person, I'm a creator. In terms of just, you know, how it meshes with the community, I am a man of faith. And so, and I'm one of those guys that always listened. I just was that, you know, I was always compliant when it came to mentorship. If they say, go read these 10 books, I'm just gonna read them. If they say, sacrifice going out and partying and study instead, I'm gonna do that. And so when guys said, you know, my uncle used to always have this saying, I'm referring to him because he was a big influence on my professional career. He'd always say, if you hang out with 5 broke people, you're gonna be the 6th one.
Yep.
But you know, we got that with kids. And then he said, if you hang out with kings and queens, you'll catch the jewels that fall from the table. And so then I sought out people that were successful, and I was never afraid to go talk to them. So even when if it's the CEO of a company, I'm gonna go up and talk to him. If it's the mayor, I'm gonna go up and talk to him. And I'm gonna say, how did you get to become successful? But I'll actually do what they say. And so, you know, most people, even now, when they ask, you know, can I mentor them, or, you know, what are the keys to success? I'll tell them the real, but I'm also watching, are they really gonna make the sacrifice? Are they really gonna do it? Because then that'll tell you what their heart is about. I was the guy that did it. So they said, man, you go out, read these 10 books, and then go swim in the lake 10 laps. I'll come back to what I did it. What's next? And then they open up, because they realize that you're really committed to it, you're gonna make the sacrifice, but more importantly, you're not gonna waste my time, because the people that mentored me were always of a certain level of success, but they had no time. So they had to really be very deliberate with how they invested it. And so I was always worthy of that. And the point is, I can't take credit, I just listened. And so I learned lessons along the way of how to be effective in business. And then the community aspect was already there. So then I started thinking about, how do I merge my interests with my skill set and make a living doing stuff I love to do. So I'm just very blessed to be able to do that.
Nice,
right.
Nice.
And that speaks to, you know, how you said you're built, you're systems based and you're creative. So the CEO obviously is the vision, you know, creating the vision and creating the path the company's going to go on, solving the problem. And then the system, building out the systems, you know, to implement that. All the way down. And then also, you know, you had mentioned that you ran away from the paper deal because obviously you didn't have the leverage, you know, the leverage now that you recognize is essential in growing out a business, you know, and replacing yourself to where that business is still so sustainable. So with that mindset, with that entrepreneurial mindset, if you were to, like you said, mentor someone now that you've been mentored and you've gotten to a level of success, what would you say would be your first information that you would provide someone that you were mentoring?
I'm a slow roller when it comes to that, because, you know, emotions drive people to make choices because they see the benefit of it, but they don't see the hard work. And so I don't jump off and just mentor people. I've mentored very few people now. I used to mentor a lot of folks. Now I'm very careful because I don't have time. So the first thing I want to do is really know what's their why. It's like, why are you interested in this? Is it because when I hear people say, I just want to make money, they ain't gonna make it. Because money comes and goes. And if you don't have that rigor to withstand all the storms, you ain't gonna make it. You got to be motivated by a deeper why. So that's where I start when I mentor anyone or even help people with their businesses. It's like, what's your purpose behind this? And I'm listening for passion. I'm listening for value. I'm listening for sustainability in how they're approaching it. That's where I start. And then and then that's several conversations that I'm going to spread out over time, because I need to see that it's not emotional. So I have to have a gap between that first conversation and when I really have a real conversation with them, because a lot of folks are just gonna fall off because they saw some documentary or they went to a seminar, they was feeling gassed up and then they want to do it. But it was just, it was emotional. It wasn't really connected to the why. They were connected to what they thought it would do for them. And sometimes it could have been, some other interpersonal issues. The next thing I typically would do is say, are you ready for some hard work? And really have a real candid conversation. Are you willing to sacrifice? Are you really willing to go all in on this? Because if you're not, don't do it. Because it's not going to be easy. It's going to take a while to get to a level where you can at least see the light in most cases. But there aren't many overnight successes. There really aren't. Really, there's a lot of grind. So I really want to understand then if their why is correct, do they really have the rigor to see it through? And then if they do, then I'll just start giving them real stuff right away. I don't play games. I don't, make them jump through hoops. I'm always very practical. People don't need to pay dues. You just have to put in the work. So then it's really just helping them put a curriculum together that builds on their strengths and then help them understand the importance of how do they provide value. And so that also works if they work for people too, not just if they're running their own business.
Very true.
Well,
Very true.
that brought up a good point, because I think you touched up on the qualities, the characteristics, the attributes that someone needs to have to be an entrepreneur. You need to have thick skin. You need to have a lot of self-motivation, wherewithal. You need to have some get back and get up on it, because you will get knocked down. It takes typically 3 to 5 years for an entrepreneur to really get to a level where now they can say, you know what, I'm moving forward now. And it takes a lot of courage to go out on that ledge and that limit and take that risk. And the definition of courage is doing something even though you're scared. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty sure you were scared when you started your business, took that leap out. I'm pretty sure I was scared when I did the same thing. Benny was scared when he did the same thing, but we have the courage. So you kind of touched up on the characteristics and attributes, but what skills, what are 3 skills that you would say an entrepreneur needs to have to be successful? We know about the gumption and the wherewithal and all that, but what are some skill sets that you think they need to be successful?
Can I flip it a little bit if you don't mind?
Of course.
I think because skills, I like skills. I think skills are tangible though. The average intelligent person, you can acquire a skill. You can read about it. You can get someone to mentor you. It's more values that I look for. And I touched on rigor earlier. It's like, do you have rigor? That's it. Well, even if you're working for someone and you want to get, so that applies to if you're employed, regardless of your profession, or if you're an entrepreneur, is number one attribute you have to have rigor, which the skill, and then you develop skills to develop that rigor, right? Whether it's conflict resolution, how to cultivate your patience, communication. There are different things you can do to the personal growth things. So that rigor, I think another key thing is leadership. And leadership is a very nuanced, misunderstood value, because there are natural born leaders, and then there are effective coaches, if you will, that may not be a leader, but they have skills to kind of coach people and to kind of be a lead, if you will. And that is driven by their ability to follow, right? We all have a need for self-preservation. That's the most common human instinct that everyone has, is the need for self-preservation, survival. And there are 2 distinct ways that people survive. You either survive by serving yourself, or you survive by serving others, right? So you're not going to be successful in the workplace or as an entrepreneur if you're only about self-service. You're never going to develop the relationships and the respect that's going to grow your tree for you, right? But if you know how to follow, if you have humility, then you kind of are primed to be successful, right? And then working within a team environment. I mean, that's a skill, but it's also a value. You cannot do anything by yourself. You can't be Mr. Know-it-all. I have let people go at my company if they don't ask for help and show vulnerability, because that's how you make mistakes, right? So it's having rigor, it's being able to work within a team environment and having that leadership. Those are so there's a multitude of skills that you need within those values that I think are keys to success.
Great. You know, I'm glad you had mentioned that too, because looking at your Facebook page, one of the titles that you use is vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it correctly. So
I just made that word up. I deleted it yesterday.
No, why? You know what? I thought that was a great word on
I'll
play.
probably put it up. I'm gonna just put that back up.
Yeah, keep that up, man. Keep that up, because it speaks of what you're talking about right now, with being vulnerable enough to ask for help, being vulnerable enough to know that you don't have to have all the questions. Have all the answers to all the questions, knowing what your niche is, and building your tree up around you for those people that can help you out, and that you could add value and you could pour into. So I want you to kind of elaborate on what's your definition and how do you define yourself as a vulnerabilitist?
I do a lot of my writing about vulnerability because that to me is the one area to me personally that is key for freedom in life, right? So you have those of us that are faith driven, right? We really rely on our faith and that's the cornerstone. But even within that, we're not vulnerable. So we really can't get to our truth. So we'll walk around hurt, wounded, limited, because we're afraid to say, this is who I am. And then we're ashamed of our stories and our background, right? And so it's like, I ain't always made good decisions. I've been a knucklehead and I've done plenty of things that I probably would do differently, but there's nothing in my background that makes me ashamed. And I have a certain level of freedom with that. So being vulnerable to me allows me to show up as my full self in every such circumstance. And then once I'm able to do that, I attract energy that's propelling me forward. So I got two stories. When I was young, in the corporate world, there was this guy, and I watched him on LinkedIn because we were at the same level as entry level managers, and we got invited to this recognition dinner. And at the table, so we're entry level managers. This is a brother, and then at the table is the senior vice president. So he the dude we trying to aspire to be like 10 years from now. And we're at this table having lunch at the luncheon. And I asked I still remember his name, but I won't say who the VP was. I asked him, I said, what stresses you out? So I'm like 22, he's 50 something. And I'm just talking to him like he's a peer. And the brother next to me was like, man, don't waste this time like that. How dare you?
Oh, no.
And he was like, oh man, I love these questions. And he started pouring into me. And the other dude sat back and was like, oh. And it's like, I've never been afraid to just ask people bluntly, how'd you get there? Give me some advice and sincerely mean it. And then another part of vulnerability, that was, 20 years ago. A couple months ago, me and one of my business partners in this other development company we have this partner, and he's a billionaire. And we were having lunch in LA, and he respects us at this level. Like he's doing business with us because he knows that we're at a level that he can spend time. And this dude it's crazy, right? And I sat at the table and was like, what are we not doing right? What can we do to be more effective? Help us understand and I'm not putting on airs. I'm like, dude, you where I want to go. I know I'm successful, but I'm going to ask you because I'm not where you are. Show me where I can be more. And he just said, he sat back because, a guy like that, and it's a Black man too, by the way. He sat back and looked across the table and was like, I saw it. And he changed the whole conversation after that. He was like, I'm going to bring you guys, he just switched the whole conversation. He said, I'm going to bring you into my network. I'm going to do this with y'all. He has like a 300-person staff. He just closed $1 billion development fund. He said, you can use all that if you want, because we were vulnerable. What he's accustomed to, right, is people putting on, I'm the man.
Facade.
They want to act, it's like, no. So I've never really had a door closed in my face for just asking for help or I don't know. So I think I try to demonstrate that in my life so that people feel more comfortable. And I don't care where you've been, what you've done. We all have gifts that are ours that we will thrive if we harness those.
Very nice. Very nice. So
That's great.
I'm real curious because I wish I was a fly at that table.
Man.
What is that being that vulnerable and obviously having the network that you have built out? What are those high level conversations? What are you speaking about at those tables? Are you speaking about systems, dialing in systems? Are you speaking about being growth minded? Like what are those conversations like?
Yes, that's a good question. Now you're talking about like if I'm sitting at the table with a partner that's like way, way up there.
Yes.
It's the same conversation that you have if you just opening up your business and you're selling smoothies out of your smoothie shop. It's the same conversation, which is the most important thing for anybody in business, and it's one of the most overlooked things for small businesses. It's what value, and this is your own assessment that you don't really need to ask, but you have to assess it to be able to provide. It's what value do you bring, right? And so for those conversations, he's on a national, so I'm listening to, I'll ask questions like, what keeps you up at night? I'll ask questions like, what are your current priorities? I'll ask questions like, what are your goals for the year? What's going right? What's going wrong? So I'm listening to everything that's most important to him. And then in my back of my mind, I'm asking, how do I provide value to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how you translate that to being a small business owner or an aspiring owner is you have to provide value to the marketplace. That is the most misunderstood element of people trying to be entrepreneurs. They don't think about the value proposition. And so, when I put my MBA hat on, you go through this whole class about competitive strategies and it's like, all right, you have all these different ways to compete, but that's really what it is. So if you're Walmart competes on cost. That's their whole competitive strategy. They know that their brand is you're going to come to Walmart to get the lowest value, period. We don't care about the quality. We're going to sell you the shoes for the cheapest than anybody else. And if you find something cheaper, we're going to lower our price. If you're Target, they're saying we're a lower cost, but you're going to get more for your money. So we're economical, but you're going to get a better buy. So that's where they compete. If you're Gucci, we're niche.
Yeah.
You're exclusive, right? So as a small business, if you're a restaurant, just because you can cook really, really good and all your family and friends love it, doesn't mean you're providing value. You have to be providing something special to the market that doesn't exist, or you're doing it better than the market. And so when I'm in those conversations, it's a similar process. It's what is the value? So in this case, with this person, he's on a national acquisition strategy. So he has $1 billion fund that he needs to spend down, and he's acquiring opportunity zones across the country. So for us, it's what are the markets in which we have relationships, what are the markets in which we're going to be able to contribute to the acquisition of assets. So I'm using his money with our team, and we're all making money together, but that provides value. If it's someone else, it's a similar equation. It's where do I meet their priority? If you work for somebody, people will always try to how do you get promoted at work, and how do you become you provide value to your boss?
Right.
People get so siloed in just my job and they 9 to 5, and it's like their boss has problems. If you make your boss successful and you forget about, you got to do your work too. But if you go to your boss and say, what can I do to make you more successful? And then your boss says, oh, I'm so stressed out. Your team is not pulling their weight and you do good, but these other people, they dragging. And then you just on your own go over there and help those people perform. You're going to make your boss look good. Your boss is going to get promoted. Who do you think is going to take your boss' whole job? You. Because your boss knows that you're part of their success, so they're going to drag you up the ladder behind them. It's the same thing with customers.
Yeah,
That's
very true.
You mentioned two things a moment ago, or in the last couple of questions that Benny asked, vulnerability and value. Mm-hmm. And I just want to make a quick statement because I think that in order to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to exude and exhibit both of them. And what I mean by that is, in order to start a successful business, you have to, first of all, know your value. In order for you to leave the corporation that you were at, a Fortune 100 company, same with myself, same with Benny, we had to know our value. But not only that, you have to then know how to portray that value now to your community. So that's number one. I also think, though, that you show a side of vulnerability when you start a business as well. You're very vulnerable when you start a business. And I'm pretty sure when I meet my clients, my relationships, when I help them, it's through showing a side of my vulnerability and letting them know I may have been at that same place before, but these are the steps that I took to get myself to the position I'm at, or these are the steps that maybe you need to take. So I think that in order to be a successful entrepreneur, number one, you have to know your value and then show, like you mentioned, that value to your community, to your constituents, to your clients, whatever it is, your prospects. But number two, you have to be vulnerable. You have to show that vulnerability, because those two V's right there lead to success, and you just explained that. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I'm glad.
Now, the next question I have for you is, when we talk about value, when I mentioned your intro, I mentioned one of the newest companies that you had just started. So if you could elaborate a little bit more on not only what is United Tech Cities, but the value of United Tech Cities as well, and why is social entrepreneurialism important for us in today's day and age?
Thanks for asking. So let me take the social entrepreneurialism first. I think that social entrepreneurialism is when you take your skills and gifts and talents and you can make money, but the community benefits, right? And so you close that economic divide, but you also provide opportunities for people in the community that otherwise don't have access. So if you look at all that's happening right now with police murdering us, even people in other, because we don't have no assets, right? Assets are power.
Yeah.
Right. And to be honest with you, the 1% is the 1%. Whether you green, black, white, yellow, red, it's economics for them. So social entrepreneurialism to me is the ladder. It's the ladder to bring people back. So that's what United Tech Cities is. It's a couple NBA players and myself that are, some of them are heavily invested in tech. And I'm a tech investor, but I'm a real estate developer. And so it's like, how do so looking at vulnerability, part of vulnerability allows us to attract people that share values. I'm not afraid to be judged. So I'm kind of tired of it all together. If I come and I'm having I'm just being myself, and I'm not afraid to talk about my background, and someone judges me because I'm not perfect, I don't want to be around that person anyway, because no one's perfect, right? Everybody has something. So I want to be around people who are humble and like, yeah, I've been through that. I 3 years ago broke up with my wife, and people are afraid. People leave churches over divorce. They leave the church, so they're embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed. It's like, I'm not disparaging anyone. It just didn't work anymore for my life. I'm not embarrassed to say that. I'm not embarrassed to be that dude about that, because that's my background. So if I deny that, then I'm denying who I am. And if I'm denying who I am, I might as well just lay down now, right? So social entrepreneurialism is attracting other people who care about the community and look at our kids. So United Tech Cities, a couple wealthy but very high profile NBA players that are still playing, and myself, formed this nonprofit. The nonprofit is going into literally right now inner city and developing housing, but tech hubs, right? So we have all these relationships in the Valley here. So some of the biggest companies that we all know, we have direct relationships with the CEOs, the founders, board members. So we can pick up the phone and be like, hey, we want y'all to come over here and do an internship program for us. And so, but we're doing it in the hood, because that's where our hearts are, right? We're doing it for those kids who are not able to participate in that global economy, which is tech. And so United Tech Cities is just that. There's 1 million vacancies in Silicon Valley. It's not diverse. It's like 1%, 2% Black. We use Facebook and Twitter like everybody else, but we're not getting the jobs. And so, or we're not able to get the funding to build our businesses. And so you have us, who are all vulnerable people, who are successful, who have resources and relationships. And we're taking that, and instead of making more money just for the sake of making more money, we're trying to help people who to develop their own opportunities to go from the lower class into the middle class to upper class, develop careers, develop companies in the inner cities where nobody cares, because they really don't. So that's what United Tech Cities is. And so
That's a great niche.
That's what all my attention is right now.
That's
So
great
how
value,
does yeah, speaking more on that, because I mean that's a great idea, and I mean that's a great opportunity for others to kind of recognize how, you know, how they could possibly give back to the communities that they may have come from, that they currently serve, that they currently live in. So with your particular business, United Tech Cities, being involved in the inner cities, how do those inner city youth reach out to you? How do they get involved in the programs that you guys are building out? Or is it already launched, or are you guys still in the works of launching?
It's been a year. We are literally trying to get the first tech hub up, and we're using the public school system. So we're gonna get, so we purposely tied in the public school system. So Oakland Unified, Chicago Public School System, and a few others we're working with, so they'll get it to their kids, but we want the kids in East Oakland and West Oakland. In Chicago, it's the kids on the north side, west side. And we're specifically targeting those kids that, like right now, they don't have access to the internet, so they're not getting educated. That's just a fact, right? They don't have Chromebooks. So we're after those kids. And so we know where they are, and we're going after them. So they don't have to find us. We know where they are.
Nice.
Very nice.
Nice. That is wonderful.
With you living in Vallejo, where are you reaching out? Because you mentioned Oakland and Chicago. Now, I went to high school in Vallejo. I went to junior high in Vallejo, and obviously that school district where it is now, it does need a lot of help. So and as far as what they're able to connect to, if they have that social media platform, if they have that tech platform already available, I'm not sure. However, I do know that the school districts are suffering, a lot here in Vallejo. Are you looking to expand out, your reaches with that company?
Yeah, Dr. Clark he's the superintendent of Vallejo. He was one of my first calls.
Okay,
So,
great.
Yeah, you guys had Hakeem on here. I think recently, right?
Last week, last Thursday.
That's my dude. We like brothers, and so Hakeem is deep into this. So he has. I'm working with him in I see Latrice's on here too, and Latrice for Richmond and Vallejo. So we on the ground where we need to be. And I'm being a little specifically targeted toward kids that look like me, who don't nobody's doing anything for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I had a conversation next week. We're going to have the California Black Chamber of Commerce President Jay King on. I had a conversation with him yesterday, and we were just talking about how a lot of our leaders aren't having certain conversations that are really going to do what you're intending to do. You know what I mean? Which is lift us up to another level through education, through inspiration, through actually being on the ground level. So that's the reason why we wanted Hakeem on. That's the reason why we wanted you on. That's the reason why we want Jay King on, is we're trying to show there are people like us that are out there that go to work every day, start businesses, they're family people, they love the Lord, they love their community, they give back. And one of our taglines is change the narrative. And hopefully, just hopefully, people like us keep doing these types of things and these type of movements. We will change that narrative permanently instead of just temporarily. So with that being said, what kind of business related books, really quickly, what kind of business related books have inspired you the most that you would recommend that we all go out there and read as well? I know earlier you mentioned that, and everything you say flows together, because you said a great leader has to be a great follower. And I can see your leadership comes from, like you said, you listen to your mentors. If they told you go get 10 books, you went and got those 10 books and you read them. So with that great mentorship that you had, what are some of those business related books that you would recommend for us that have inspired you the most? Yeah,
that's a good question. I mean, I'm an avid reader. I've read tons of leadership books, business books, management books, like tons of them. I think the one that is required reading for anybody who works for me is The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker, which was written in the 60s. It is still relevant today. That is if they work for me, they have to read the book or you can't even start. because it teaches people how to be effective. And that's the most important thing. There's a different, John Wooden has a famous quote, is don't mistake activity for accomplishment.
Yeah.
Right. And we live by that mantra. So I think that's one. John Maxwell has some really good leadership books, but the effective, I mean, you got Good to Great and all that. The effective executive to me is the most important for me because it teaches the individual, this, you talk about skills, the skills they need to be effective, as opposed to just being active and doing a lot of activities, but you're not really seeing the growth you want. You're not really seeing the freedom you want. You're not really seeing the results you want. And so the effective executive zooms all the way into what are you trying to actually get as an outcome. So that's the number one book. I still reference that book. I bought probably 50, 60 copies over the years and give them away.
Okay.
Nice. I just posted that in the chat for everyone else to, if they missed that, the effective executive, excuse me.
I think the second
Drucker.
most influential, since I'm just throwing it in, is the book of Proverbs. Woo.
Oh,
Between those two,
very nice.
You don't need nothing else.
Very nice.
If you just take one and you take one a day and just read them over and over, that's probably the most, I mean, that's the wisdom I use in life.
Okay.
And it applies across the board.
Nice. Are there any, because I know it's a 11:41 or so. We want to keep people too long. We're approaching an hour. So I see we have 14 people live on the Zoom with us. I'm not sure how many people are watching us on Facebook Live, but we want to open it up maybe for questions for our panel of people that we have following along as well to make sure that we get some extra questions that maybe Benny and myself are not thinking about. I see in the chat there are some things, but anybody who has questions, you can, I guess, if you're on the Zoom, you can unmic yourself or unmute yourself and ask the question, or you can send the question to the chat and Benny and myself can ask it as well.
Yeah. And real quick before anyone, and as those questions come in, we'll answer them. Your real estate development company, Landis. So actually, let's go back there because you mentioned that your uncle was your obviously your insight on real estate. So your real estate development company, was that the first company that you opened up? Was that the first company that you started
in life?
Yes. Well, I mean, after you've already kind of like got over the newspaper and the lemonade stands and.
No, to be honest with you, the first company I ever opened was a record company.
Oh, nice.
One of my high school buddies was a rapper, and he was good, and that was in a day where we had a big independent scene. So I started a record company. We produced records.
Benny, go out. I'm on the phone.
We did.
Stop playing. If the door's closed, keep it closed.
We did really good, and then it's been real estate companies and a couple software companies.
Okay. And with your real estate company, can you elaborate a little bit more? Because I know a lot of people who want to get into real estate, but they don't quite know how to get into real estate, whether it's for home ownership or investing. Can you elaborate on how you maybe got into it and what you really do with your real estate business? You know what I mean?
So I got into it as a full-time investor through my uncle. And my cousin and I started a business, Pen and Graden Properties, and we just acquired a bunch of properties throughout the Bay Area, and we set up a management company, and we did that for a long time. But I wanted something more scalable, and so I opened a brokerage with my sister. We had a couple of brokerages. We did loans and real estate, and it was really hard because I went from being a principal to a fiduciary, which I hated that. But commercial real estate and development, when you look at them Forbes list of billionaires, it's always real estate guys, developers. And so I was attracted to that because I've always thought real estate development was fascinating. And so I just got into it. So I had a background in investing, so I knew how to do all that, but getting into development took a few years. But someone getting in is, again, what value. In commercial real estate and in development, it's one of the basic elements of life, right? You have food, shelter, clothing. And so there's always going to be a need for housing of some sort, whether it's businesses or for people to live in. So there's going to always be a demand. And I always try to steer people of color to commercial real estate and development, because development is a lot more complex and takes a lot more capital. But if you know how to find opportunities, there's money in the marketplace. If commercial real estate it's the same amount of work, But if you're in residential real estate, you know, it's a gruel because there's so many people in it, and there's a lot of people in commercial, but the resources are tremendous in commercial real estate, and there's not a lot of us, and there's room for us to create. So someone wanting to get in, I think it needs to be, why do you want to get in? If you just want to get in to make money, don't do it. But if you like helping people, you like to solve problems, there has to be a deeper why. If you just, some people get into housing development because they want to see more people housed. So I would say, seek out people that talk to them about their journey, see if something resonates with you, and then get hooked up with some mentors who can teach you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very nice, very nice. And please, everyone, forgive me. This is one of the challenges of obviously working at home now with COVID-19.
That's life.
I thought I put it on mute. I didn't mean to overtalk you. I thought I stop the video on the mute, but I get my little guy that comes in, my assistant, that comes in every now and then.
That's why most people mics are muted, because they don't want you to hear them yelling in the back.
Right. And forgive me, I thought I muted it.
Don't worry.
I tried to mute you, Benny, but it didn't work.
Don't worry about it.
Well, we did get a question from the rest of the group too. So the question is from Vanessa, and please forgive me for butchering your last name, Boldness. How important is it to have?
How you doing, Vanessa? I love her, by the way. I love her.
Nice.
Real deal.
So she's asking, how important is it to have a solid business plan, and what it would look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. You don't need an encyclopedia business plan. I always tell people, write a business plan, keep it to a couple sheets of paper. Try to make it as much bullet pointed as possible. I think I can just tell you real quick, the first thing is, what problem are you trying to solve? And you really have to be able to try to solve a problem. People know how to cook, don't mean they're going to be successful in a restaurant if it's too crowded, if there's no demand for what they're trying to offer. After you figure out the problem you're trying to solve, you need to look at the competition, like who's in the marketplace. And so you got to look at, what are they doing? How are they doing it? And is there room for you? And then it's the economics, like, is it a product? Is it a service? And what's the value I can bring? And then what can I charge for it? And then from there, you just kind of do some projections. It should be that simple. What's the problem I'm trying to solve? Who's out here already trying to solve the problem? What value do I bring knowing that? And then what can I charge for it? That's the basics of a business plan. Everything else is assumptions. Everything else is, all right, we're going to be in business in 10 years, I'm going to make this amount of money. There are people that can help you with assumptions, but it's the value proposition is most important. So problem you see that you want to solve, who's already in the marketplace doing it, what value can I bring? So in other words, another way to say that is it a brand new mousetrap, or am I doing it differently and it's going to attract people?
We also have a question from our president of the local chapter, Solano County Black Chamber of Commerce, Elise Cheek.
Happy birthday yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sure she did it up for her birthday. So
she's another entrepreneur out here.
But the question Elise has from an entrepreneurial standpoint, and I know Elise does a lot in the community, just like we all do as well. So this question is not only for Elise, but it could be for anybody else as well. But how can I help engage the Vallejo School District training students and young adults in the construction trades? So that may be for anybody else who's looking to maybe get into the Vallejo School District and make an impact as well in Solano County. We all know Vallejo is like the redhead stepchild compared to Vacaville and Fairfield, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So how can we get into the school district, especially at least, and do some training?
No, good question. I'm gonna say it my way. Sorry, Vallejo. I would open up that question. I wouldn't necessarily lock into Vallejo. I would lock into who's out there that desires that first. Because what you don't want to do is take your value proposition to somebody who doesn't value it. It's not a need they have. So in other words, I would spread it out to the entire marketplace. I know you want to help your local community. You can help them on the back end. So sometimes Vallejo, the city in and of itself, and I'm speaking specifically to Vallejo, unlike a lot of other cities, we have some issues. And so as an entrepreneur, don't limit yourself to one potential market. Look at the entire pool. Fairfield, Vacaville, Oakland, Hayward, San Francisco. You have to be willing to say, where is a need that I can feel? And then set up the system, set up the entire system. Don't go ask them because they're not gonna know. And it's not a knock on them, it's that they're focused on educating children the best they can with the resources they have available. And when you start bringing I see Gethsemane Moss, who's on the school board, she already knows. They already have priorities. And so when you bring something new, it's like, oh, nobody has time for it. So there's a barrier. And so what you want to look for is, where is there a real opportunity that you can provide value that they will appreciate, and then go solve that first. Then you get your model going, then you can come back and help Vallejo. Because there are districts that will take that now.
Okay.
And so if Vallejo has somebody aligned to that, go for it. If there's nobody aligned to that, go find a district with somebody that's aligned to it. And if you can't do it in a district, set it up outside the school system.
Makes sense. And we got one more question from Latricia Alford. She's asking about the SB 1241 tech bill, and asking if can anti-discrimination requirements actually be enforced in Silicon Valley? And are you familiar with that bill?
I'm not familiar with the bill, but I know what she's talking about, anti-discrimination. I'm assuming what she's saying is kind of they're trying to legislate diversity.
Yes, right. Yeah, with the hiring, right in the tech industry.
That don't work. No, never will work.
Yeah. The private companies, right?
Well, it's not even that. They don't care. That's where I was going to go. The government always tries to legislate stuff that don't nobody care about. I belong to this peer group of CEOs. I'm the only brother. And you're talking about companies that are a few million dollars all the way up to $1 billion and a little over $1 billion in revenue. So all the companies are in that, and they're all CEOs. These people don't care about this diversity. They care about the bottom line dollar. And I'm in the room with these people, and I meet with them once a month, been meeting with them for years. And you talk about guys who run $1 billion companies. The smallest in our group got about $3 or $4 million in revenue. And everybody, like I said, everybody in between, and you're talking about construction companies, tech companies, engineering companies, development company, textile companies. And they talk about, how do I make more money? They don't care about what you look like, and you can't, and they are never going to let anybody regulate them. They're conservative as it is. I'm probably the only Democrat. I do make them write checks for me for my poor kids though all the time. I guilt them out of that, but it's not gonna work, because the role of the CEO is to return value to the shareholders. Right. The board of directors' job is to make sure the CEO is doing that job. So I think a better way to do it is to do what we're doing in United Tech Cities, develop top tier talent that will be in demand, and then they will have an abundance of employment. Getting them up into senior leadership, that's a whole nother story though. Hope that answers your question a little bit, but it's not gonna work.
Yeah, it goes back to speaking to what you were saying before, solving the problem. The problem is obviously educating more people like us to be able to fill those positions to where we are a demand, and where we're graduating from these, Ivy League schools, or we're graduating from these programs that are specific to that tech industry, that we're top of the list, that they're, a drive for that particular individual, and not just, forcing them or trying to force a company to decide how they're going to move forward with what they're hiring. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I grew, like I was told, most people miss it, but I grew up in a military family. So I spent every summer, my mom's family was from East Oakland, deep East Oakland. So I spent every single summer from kindergarten all the way through high school living in East Oakland, and then in San Diego in a bunch of with the white community. And all my cousins were drug dealers, but they were geniuses. They knew marketing, they knew distribution, they knew finance in their brains. So the point I'm saying is, we are extraordinarily talented as a people. So if you give us an opportunity, we're going to dominate. So I think it's better to provide the resources and training to the kids where they are, and then allow them just to compete on their own, because they're going to kill it once they get the opportunity.
Right.
Tanisha says, Tanisha Smith has a question really quick for you, ladies.
Hey, Tanisha.
Hey there.
World traveler.
And now stationed at home. Can't go anywhere. Quick question. So you talked about the CEOs that you used to ask the questions about what kept them up at night. You are at a point, whether you want to believe it or not, you're at that point where people want to ask you, what keeps you up at night?
Am I being a good dad? That's the only thing I worry about, because I done made a whole lot of money and lost a whole lot of money a whole bunch of times. I don't ever worry about going broke, because even if I went broke tomorrow, I'm gonna get it back. I'm a hustler. So I don't stress over business. I don't stress over, because I really believe that, I mean, that's my faith. God gonna move me where he wants to move me. So I'm a good listener in that regard. I stay open to, am I doing enough for my son and my daughter growing to grow? She's 13, he's 10. That's what keeps me up at night. Now, most of my friends, they're stressed out about salaries. They're stressed out about products. And I watch them going crazy. Or that peer group, some of them, they're losing their minds. I don't approach life like that, because God provides. So I'm different that way. If that makes sense. So, I'm sorry I didn't give you like my payroll or talent.
No, that's okay. Well, that's the true question. What keeps you up at night? And I don't know what the answers were for those other CEOs, but it'd be great to hear what keeps you up at night. It could be totally unrelated to business.
I talk to them all the time. They're always stressed out about the bottom line. That's it. They stressed out about going broke. They stressed out about competition. I'm listening to value every single day of my life. And when I hear value, if I can create it, I go create it. And so you do that, and you're a good leader, and you develop a good team, you'll never be broke. So I've looked at my tree one day. You see coaches' trees. I have a number of people that are running their own businesses that I got brand new into the workforce, that I groomed. And I try to kick people out when they get to a certain level of success. If you have that, you'll never go broke. So I don't stress.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's key right there.
Thank you, Tanisha, for that question.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have, so we got 11:57. We're just going to take this to 12 o'clock. So we have 3 more questions right now here. So this is from Gethsemane Moss.
Gethsemane Moss.
Gethsemane Moss.
Check her out. She got good memes up. She does them herself too, which we give her credit for.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, the real good one on the other day when she was dancing. That was good.
So she's asking, how do you address challenges with mindset in our communities? In other words, with some of the needs you are creating, have you found that we don't always see the vision?
If you're talking about the community, the government,
she's asking regarding the community.
Like our community, so like communities of color, for example.
Yeah, we got problems, honestly. And it's because I'm just telling you my personal philosophy, just being in government and then being all over the country and being in the hood all the time. We're not being educated, number one, and we don't have those community stalwart leaders that are all about giving back. And so the mindset is challenging because we're competing with media that's instant gratification and just getting worse and worse and worse. And so we're consumers still. And I think our consumer mentality has us in a cycle of just got to get it fast, whether it's fast money or I want to be an internet star. And I think we're not, when I grew up, we all know the stories of the community was holistic, but I think we have to get back to that. That's why I like to support people like Hakeem. When I look at the riots that are happening, I've been in meetings with these CEOs and it's like they're burning down the neighborhood and these dudes talking about, oh man, I just got back from south of France on my yacht. They don't care. And so I think with our mindset, I think we got to just focus on the kids. I really do. I think we just stay with the babies, create as many resources and opportunities for them to have opportunity to learn, to develop their own vision for life, to develop a trajectory for how they want to grow and give back. I think that's what we focus on the community. As far as the grown folks, those that are in a fight are already in a fight. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of us.
Yeah.
Last question, Marquise, you want to open up your mic and ask your last question?
Yes. I have more so a comment question towards the discrimination piece. I am practicing attorney, and I must say, as far as the discrimination is concerned, we as attorneys, we're not exempt from the discrimination. One of the main issues for us in being able to become parts of even practices is the fact that we cannot stay in those environments. Once we do or are hired by a large firm, by and large, we don't stay. And so my question is, I'm a business owner. I run my own practice. My wife does as well, and a lot of my friends do as well. It's a matter of how do you continue to run your own practice at the same time, not become just segmented, but able to incorporate your practice into the larger the community at large, to be able to, number one, bring in more people that look like you, not into the profession, as well as like you do, Landis, groom them and send them back out to the industry at large to be able to be successful, to help bring more people in, because we're not going to go if the numbers aren't there and if we're not comfortable in the environment that we're in. Because a lot of my colleagues, they have left the practice of law altogether because of those experiences, and we will never catch up and reach there if we cannot create our own and keep it and incorporate into the larger society.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I don't have a direct answer for you in terms of that. All I can tell you is the firms that I see that are very successful, they're embedded in industry. They're specialized. They go deep into a niche. So a lot of the K-12, I mean, Kissimmee can tell you, I'm sure their legal bills for their district are massive. I see them. Mm-hmm. And so like K-12 districts, they go deep into the K-12 niche and they become a valuable resource for the district. And so they cover everything from like HR issues, real estate issues, people in the tech world, intellectual property, they go deep. So I think, and I try to employ, and you know this, I try to employ a lot of Black attorneys. I kind of almost try to do that exclusively, but they're just kind of looking for deals. And I've not seen one go deep into a space and become like an expert in it. I always said, if someone goes deep into real estate, they'll clean up. Everybody's always looking for good real estate. They go deep into tech. And that's what the larger firms do. They see where that pool, when we're talking about business plan, what's the size of the pool, what's the size of the pie, is carving out an industry where there's a large pie, and then they go deep into that. And I see, then they just attract business. And then once you do that, you can groom your staff because you have plenty of work to give them. Hope that answers a little bit, but it's really specializing in something that is scalable.
Nice.
Thank you so much, Marquise, for that question.
Yes.
And so I do want to be respectful of everybody's time. We were over the hour mark, and Landis Graden, I mean, you provided a ton of value today. We thoroughly appreciate you taking out time of your busy schedule to, share so much and be a part of the Global Empowerment Team show today. We would definitely love to have you back. And for everyone that didn't get a chance to chime in live, or everyone that did come in and want to, make sure that you have somebody in your life that wants to hear Landis Graden. This was recorded. This is on our Facebook page, Global Empowerment Team. This will be uploaded on our YouTube Global Empowerment Team page there as well. And if you want to, reach out to kind of follow up with some other questions and get in contact possibly with Landis Graden, please contact us, and we, may be able to facilitate that for you.
Yeah, I just want to tell everybody, please vote, because that's the only thing that changes. The police are locally controlled.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't forget, turn on those post notifications, hit the thumbs up, like everything. We have more content coming at you this Sunday at 2:30. We'll be back at you next Thursday with Jay King as well. But thank you everybody for tuning in, and let's get it.
Thanks for having me. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you, Landis. Thank you.
Thank you.